It's actually 5:06, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Diversity Inclusion Task Force for February 7th. Would you like to take the roll, please?
Starting with the council, Councilmember Ryan is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr.
Present.
Councilmember Wellner is absent. Vice Mayor and Chair Thier.
Here.
And Mayor Fredericks is absent. And the at-large members, Karen Carrera.
Here.
Thank you. Ruben Calra.
Here.
Nushin Latour.
Here.
And Tina Shaw-Pikeday.
Here.
Great. So let's go to our first order of business. And the first order of business is any public comment on matters not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment? I don't see anyone standing up in the room. Do we have anyone online, Lee?
Seeing none.
And I hear a big echo. I'm making an echo and I feel like I'm very powerful, like the Wizard of Oz right now. But I'll go along with the echo because there we go. So I will go to action item A1 first, and that is a discussion on the vote regarding the recommendation on the structure of the task force. So it is just an agenda item for this body to discuss the structure of the task force, if anyone would like to discuss that.
And will a recommendation from this meeting go to the town council meeting?
It is an action item, so yes, we are allowed to vote on it. It just has not been yet agendized for this task force, and it is on the town council's agenda tonight. So it's an opportunity to have a discussion and vote on it, actually.
And I think the staff put together some thoughts on this, but I don't see it on here. Or is this on perhaps the main council agenda? Just the structure of the DI task force, the options?
Yes, I did put together a report for the council item on the tonight's council agenda. If
So,
you're,
because I think it might be helpful to go to that. So if we go to the town council regular meeting agenda.
How do we do that?
would,
Oh, I see.
And then I think it's, you guys able to see that? Then I think you go to A14 Diversity Inclusion Task Force Makeup and Structure. And then there's the staff report.
I would like to ask the staff that prepared this list of recommendations to explain the reasons behind the options provided.
what do you mean reasons? So this was just prepared as a general list of options that in theory could be updated.
Could you explain each of the options?
Would it be helpful if I just went through them and you asked questions as I got to each one?
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll start. If the DITF were to remain a Brown Act body, it could remain as is, so no changes. Number 2, reconstitute as another standing committee of the council. For example, 5 at-large members and 2 members of the council, and that's just an example. Number 3, reconstitute as a town-appointed board with 5 members and no council members. If the DITF were to transition into a non-Brown Act body, it could transition into one or several town council ad hoc subcommittees. So the action involved in that would be the council would create ad hoc subcommittees with 2 council members who can consult with any members of the public that the ad hoc deems necessary. The committees must have a specific purpose for a limited time period, or it could disband and 2 council members can still attend any meetings that might come up.
Could you explain the last one, the disband? Is that to disband the DITF with 2 council members attending which meetings?
I think it would be if there was a community group that wanted to form for whoever wanted to join, it would just, the intention is to say that 2 council members could still attend any of those meetings and they wouldn't be a Brown Act body meetings.
I have a question. Why are we even talking about this? I mean, why is this, sorry, why is this on the town council's
So at the
agenda?
last town council meeting, council member Ryan, thank you, asked to agendize at this coming council meeting, the makeup and, consider changes to the DTIF. So these options are not new options. These are options that happened when the board was originally formed was it 2 years ago now? So staff took out the options that were presented to council last time around when they created this board to give the council the information about the different options.
And when this was created originally, was there a time period for which the council was created in this current fashion?
No,
Wasn't it part of the settlement to create, the Yema settlement to create this committee?
no, the CAP was the Citizen Oversight Advisory Panel was part of the settlement. The settlement for this body recognized that the body had formed, but it wasn't a contractual requirement under the settlement agreement.
Right, but it says, I mean, right before you get to D, it says programs, and I'm looking at the Yema settlement, page 2. It says programs and policy and procedure changes. In addition to the settlement payment described in section 1, as a result of the August 21, 2020 incident and plaintiff's claims, the town of Tiburon and the Tiburon Police Department have implemented the following programs and policy and procedure changes. Right, so then you're right, it goes into the CAP and then we're gonna do the agrees to implement a general public contact procedure. And then D says the Tiburon Town Council formed the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force in November 2020, which provides advice to the town council, manager, and police chief regarding issues of diversity and inclusion involving the police department, and provides advice to the town council regarding ways to improve diversity and inclusion generally in the town of Tiburon. So I mean, the way it reads to me, it's under the, the program and policy and procedure changes. And it's right there clearly as a program and policy and procedure change that now we've established this diversity inclusion task force. Further, during the negotiations of the Yema settlement, that was one of the things that Yema and Howie wanted, right? Was to have a diversity committee as part of the town council. So it just seems like that doesn't make sense why you would even have that on the agenda for the town council. You're going against the settlement.
Yeah, that was a concern that we discussed, is like, we brought it, I see it on the agenda, but is this something we can even change because it's part of the settlement? And so, a question for you to sort of evaluate and look at, because it seems like there's signatures, I know Howie and Yemen, one of the important things was the task force. And so it'd be worthwhile maybe I don't think it's on any of the agenda items, just to look at it and provide some feedback in terms of like the implications, whether there's any liability to the town of Tiburon if the existing structure is changed before we start even thinking about it, because there may be legal issues involved.
I'm not sure if there's a question, but from my perspective, and I have researched this, the settlement agreement does not obligate the town to continue this commission. It recognized the commission came into existence because of the events, but the settlement agreement does not contractually require them, whether it should continue, whether it was obviously the plaintiff's intent for this to continue. Those are issues that are policy issues that everyone can weigh in on when the council takes this up later today.
Oh.
But from our perspective, there's no contractual requirement for this board. Nor
Well,
could
I
there.
mean, the court retains jurisdiction to enforce the settlement. So, it's possible that Yema and Howie would take, would not be happy if the task force was disbanded, for example. I mean, they could go back to court and say, this is what we agreed to under, they go under CCP 664, they could go back and say, we want to enforce the settlement agreement. And the court retains jurisdiction to hear the parties out, and I don't see what reason the council would have for wanting to disband it when it's actually really successful and great. We're doing great things. We're working so hard.
Well, let me just back up. So the
Okay.
council hasn't said they wanted to disband anything.
Okay,
This staff report, these options were options that were given even before the settlement agreement was enacted. So these were options originally when the council created this group of all the different ways you can have a group that were happening at that time.
right.
So, I don't want you or anyone in the public to think somehow the council gave us direction to disband this group. It was just different models of citizens groups out there.
Right. But again, I think it's something that goes against the settlement and the intent of the settlement and, the intent of the parties when they drafted this settlement. And just goes against the spirit of, the settlement and why this whole thing was created. I mean, it's not our fault that this happened, right? Anybody's fault. It was just, it is what it is, that this issue happened, that this police officer said something really inappropriate and was inappropriate to this merchant. But now here we are and we have a settlement and anyway, so I think I've said enough. I just think it's really ill-conceived to even put this on the agenda. It's kind of mean-spirited. I don't know,
Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, these are the options that,
Yeah.
may be perceived as insulting because I think, end of the day, we made some good progress here in Tiburon. I'm happy to bring it forward in the council meeting. I've always said before, diversity of opinion is a good thing. It leads to healthier discussions, healthier conversations. But we're one of the last standing task forces for diversity in Marin County, probably in one of the least diverse communities in all of California. And we made tremendous, I think, forward progress. I mean, one was the cultural awareness through our various events. We're driving that forward with even more interest to bring people from all walks of life to make this community even more welcoming. And then, as part of the settlement and part of the strategic plan, there was a talk on policing. And, bias training can be helpful. And to me, it's sort of a no-brainer to bring that into discussion, as well as just, we have a terrific police chief, just bringing in the concept of let's look at some of the data independently and make sure there's some accountability and transparency with what we're doing. And the existing task force has functioned, I think, in a very positive way, because we have the council through the leadership of Holly, who's been leading the way, but we're able to get the input very quickly. So from an efficiency standpoint, we make some decisions and it sort of moves to the priority list of the council. And I think the second question, I've talked to, some of the other council members is, have we moved far enough where we can move on to some of these other committee structures? So far, we've only, I think, sort of reached the surface with our cultural awareness celebrations, whether that's Nowruz or Juneteenth or Diwali. But now we're sort of moving into the teeth of what I think we're trying to accomplish to help make this a more beautiful tapestry of Tiburon and Belvedere is the Citizens Advisory Board and the strategic plan, because it's a huge signal, I think, not only to Tiburon, but the community, that if we can do it, any other community can do it. And so I would stay for now until there's meaningful change in a positive direction that we can stand by with the metrics that the subcommittee put together, that we stand with what we're doing with the existing structure. And maybe 1 year from now, we contemplate how the structure would want to exist moving forward. And that was just my 2 cents.
I have one other clarifying question for town council, which is, it sounds like these options were proposed based on what was initially considered. Can you remind us why there are Brown Act body and non-Brown Act body options?
Yes, it was to give the perceived flexibility of some bodies versus others. So I remember when board member Colora first started, he had a lot of questions of why do we need the Brown Act? You know, how can we operate outside the Brown Act? With a large group, it's sometimes harder to operate with the confines of the Brown Act. So we were giving the council options if they didn't want to have, you know, noticed meetings, they wanted to be more nimble in how to, you know, conduct meetings, which a lot of cities follow that model. They would have non-Brown Act bodies. And, you know, there's different ways of doing that. One way is to have a volunteer group, but yeah, as board member Carrera mentioned, that would be a totally different model than what is happening now. The other way of doing that is to have just 2 council members on an ad hoc basis without a, you know, majority. What you can't do, and I remember, you know, Ruben and I talked about this early on, was have a couple council members appointed and members of the public appointed. That's a Brown Act body. So the minute the council is appointing members of the other members of the community to a panel, even if it's with less than a quorum of council members, that's a Brown Act body. So the point was to kind of have 2 models for the council to choose from. Do they want it to be subject to the Brown Act versus not? And some perceived advantages of not being subject to the Brown Act is you can meet on an as-needed basis. You don't, you know, you can have your meetings in different locations. You don't have to give any sort of notice. So that was, you know, sometimes like when you have a true ad hoc and you're investigating something and coming up with some recommendations for a council, that can make sense because you're going off to different places, meeting different people. You make your own agenda of what you're going to do next to come up with that recommendation.
And then just for clarification, I understand the benefits. What would be the disadvantages of each option as well?
I always think the advantages of a Brown Act body is, you know, more participation, more transparency. I mean, that's why the Brown Act was created. So the drawbacks to a Brown Act body is, you know, as you saw tonight, if you don't have people show up, you're sitting there waiting for people. You have to have a quorum. You have to follow the rules of the Brown Act. You have to follow the noticing procedures. And then the drawbacks for an ad hoc, non-Brown Act body, I think the drawbacks are what I just said, the positives of the Brown Act, transparency.
Thank you.
Yes, you should.
Okay, Nushin, I had a quick question. So if it remains a Brown Act, do we have to formally decide if it's 1, 2, or 3, or is it just Brown Act or not Brown Act? Because here you have 3 options under Brown Act.
Under oh, I see.
And let me just say, these options are from the town council report. So that's part of what the town council will be looking at.
Exactly.
But go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sorry, your question was, if it's a Brown Act body, there's still other choices to be made, right? So if you're considering, if you like the idea of the protection the Brown Act provides or the transparency, then the staff report mentions 3 types of Brown Act bodies. One would be the way it is right now, the entire council with, you know, 5 appointeds. Or you would have, you know, some less amount of council or less amount of appointeds. I mean, you can come up with any combination you want. But if the council is the one appointing the body, then it'll be a Brown Act body. And then the third option was a standing committee, which is 5 at large. Oh, yeah. So they're all kind of blend together,
Mhm.
but ultimately it's the council doing the appointments. And then I think that, you know, the recommendation you all might want to think about tonight, I think the council would want to hear the feedback on, do you want the whole council to
Mhm.
still be part of this? I think that's been an issue in the past, just as far as getting calendars, getting meetings set, and things of that nature.
Yeah, so I just want to speak to that for a minute. We have not had an issue with the council members coming. Due to a work situation, we have had one council member that needs to appear virtually. Now, the second thing is that I want to go back to the roll call. This meeting was actually planned the meeting date was changed because of Valentine's Day. As much as I love all of you and you love me, I didn't think you'd want to be with me on Valentine's Day. So at the time that this meeting was changed, we did have responses from everyone that they could make this date. So I want to make that clear. I want to put it on the record. And I want to say we have a town council meeting just following this meeting. So I think that's an important point. I do want to talk a little bit about the structure of this committee. I remember when we first devised this committee because of what happened with Yema. It was very, very important that all of the town council be on this committee because it is the town council that at the end of the day is responsible for diversity and inclusion here in Tiburon. We are the ones that oversee the town manager, who then oversees all of the staff, the police department, and everyone else. So I'm very strongly in favor of keeping the town council and all its members on this commission, on this task force. Now, I believe that if we did anything other than that, we would be sending a strong message to Tiburon that we do not value diversity, inclusion, and that the town council is really not going to make it their top priority. So if anyone was curious about my position, I just wanted to kind of set it out there very clearly. I also believe that non-Brown Act bodies would also de-elevate the status of this body, and it would create a situation where there is not the transparency that we need in order to operate effectively to promote diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion here in Tiburon. So that is what I will be talking about tonight. I think that, you know, this whole discussion about all the alternatives, you know, while it's interesting, you know, the task force was already set up. We're just starting. We're not finished. And I think that, you know, that the structure right now is the structure we need. So we have one of two choices. We could vote. We could hear other comments. Does anyone else have comments on this item?
If it ain't broken, why fix it?
If I may, given it's the Brown Act, before you take a vote, make sure you open up for public comment on this item.
Okay, anyone?
How many people are online?
None.
With one person here and none online?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I think we need public comment first, just call for
Is
it.
there public comment? Sorry.
Well,
You
and-
just said that.
And one thing, I know there was a lot of, I know it was on the main council meeting, there were a lot of correspondences from members of the community on this specific structure. And I don't know if it's worthwhile maybe to look at that to showcase what maybe some of the community are thinking about. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw that was under under correspondences. Correspondence 1.
Through 8.
Yeah. I don't know if you think it might be helpful just to read these comments from the community.
Sure.
Yeah, so
And then we'll take public comment.
number 1 from Mailing Portuguese Brennan, Tiburon resident since 2000. Just regarding this item specifically, I'm firmly in favor of supporting their proposed strategic plan and keeping the composition of the task force as is with both community and council members, as it signifies importance to Tiburon, prioritizing our commitments to building a more welcome community for all. Correspondence 2 from Lynn Feinerman, Tiburon resident over 30 years. Just specifically on this issue. I've been advised that keeping the composition of the task force as is with both community and council members working together signals that Tiburon prioritizes our commitment to building a more welcoming community for all. I want the council to support the task force proposal and to continue working directly with the DITF. Correspondence 3 is slowly loading up. I don't know if yours is faster than mine. Is yours loading?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there it goes. From Carol Cornbrod. I wish to clearly support the position that DITF remain a Brown Act body with its membership as is, or as a board of 5 at-large members and no members of the town council. It's proven its worth and demonstrates its further promise to the town is in its strategic plan. Number 4, from Themby Gates Williams. I want to write to express support for the Diversity Inclusion Task Force strategic plan for the town of Tiburon. This is an opportunity for Tiburon to lead the way in Marin County by modeling how a town can work with residents, businesses, police force, and decision makers to cultivate a community where all groups feel safe, included, welcome, and celebrated. Additionally, the structure of the task force should remain as is, demonstrating its capacity for action and effectiveness beyond symbolism. Correspondence 6 from Brian Colbert. I've been following the creation and work of the Tiburon Diversity Inclusion Task Force since its inception. It's done an excellent job towards a more welcoming Tiburon. I support their proposed strategic plan and keeping the composition of the task force in its current configuration. The combined membership of both community and council members signifies that Tiburon is committed to building a more welcoming community for all. So thank you, potential supervisor Brian Colbert. Correspondence 7 from Samantha Walravens. I'm strongly in favor of the DEI task force and keeping the composition as is. Number 8. Loading up. From Olivia Kress. I'm in from Belvedere, providing in support of the strategic plan and keeping the composition of the task force with members of the council and members of the community. Okay, and those were the 8 correspondences from the community.
I'd like to ask if the town manager has a point of view.
Don't have any particular point of view on whether the structure should be changed. As councilman, or excuse me, as Chair Thier mentioned, I work for the council, and whatever council directs us to do, we will certainly, follow their direction on this. I was going to point out just for folks, just as a reminder of other Brown Act bodies, there's the Parks and Open Space Trails Commission. There's a number of bodies that already exist in the town that are Brown Act bodies. And just as a reminder, includes the Planning Commission, the Design Review Board, Parks and Open Space Trails Commission, as well as the Heritage and Arts Commission. So just as a reminder, those are all Brown Act bodies.
Oh, and just, I guess there was 14 other ones on the other, I guess there was a lot of correspondences. They were listed. There was 8 correspondences within the structure, and another on, if you go into the correspondence under task force strategic plan and the task force makeup and structure, there were 8 listed and then 14 listed. I don't need to read all of them, but the one that I will read is to someone who I think helped inspire us. You guys might know Noah Griffin, and Noah just said it is my understanding that 100% of the community members of the DTF are in support of the town's strategic plan. I firmly support the proposed strategic plan and urge all members of everyone to do the same. And I guess there's 13 other ones. So that's, could read all these other ones, but maybe we can defer that to the council meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I'll make a motion. I would like to move that we public comment. I'd like to take public comments. Would anyone in the chambers like to speak? Is there anyone online that would like to speak, Lee?
Seeing none.
Okay, great. Then I will move that we recommend to the town council that we keep the structure of the task force as is. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so a vote, Lee.
Would you like a roll call vote?
I think so.
Councilmember, starting with the council, Councilmember Ryan is absent. Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellner is absent, Vice Mayor and Chair Thier.
Yes.
Mayor Fredericks is absent, and the at-large members Karen Carrera,
Yes.
Ruben Colora,
Yes.
Nushin Latour,
Yes.
and Tina Shaw Pikeday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that is,
Just a quick question. Is there still no one online?
Still no one online.
yeah. Okay. Okay, great. We are moving right on to, I'm gonna go to events. And, is there any, staff report?
You have attached to your staff reports tonight, or your agendas tonight, a proposal for an Asian Pacific Heritage event, and the organizer is here tonight, and I think she was prepared to speak on her proposal.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for putting me on the agenda tonight. I only found out on Monday that you guys were meeting today, so I'm glad that worked out. Should I just go ahead and present what I have on my proposal?
Sure.
Has everyone seen the proposal, had a chance to look at it? Okay, so basically, I don't know if I should tell you the whole background, but I just moved to Tiburon last September. And my husband actually showed me this article that Albert Yu had made a proposal to this body regarding an Asian Pacific event. And he said, you might be interested in this. And so I basically looked him up and cold called him, and it took him a week to get back to me. And so I've been working on this for a couple of weeks now. And I've done a couple of Asian and Pacific events. I just moved here from Santa Rosa. I live in a wonderful senior community there called Oakmont. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but I put on a couple of Chinese New Year events and an Asian Pacific event. And I'm actually in the process of doing one for them also this year. But this is a chance to do something a little bit different because it's a more family-oriented event as opposed to Oakmont, which is much more of a senior community. And so kind of building on what Albert had proposed regarding the Dragon Boat Festival, we wanted to kind of expand it to maybe do more of a Asian Pacific Islander event, which is Heritage Month in May. And so I thought we could build upon that. And I did just find out that May 18th is available. So that would actually be the date that we're shooting for. And I did confirm with the library also that they do not have a conflict. So Albert had proposed having lion dancers from the Marin Chinese Cultural Association. I've also confirmed with all of these people. I've talked with San Rafael Martial Arts, and they're willing to come out and do some Kung Fu demonstrations, which, and I haven't confirmed about exactly what they're going to do, but I did ask them to have kids as well as adults, just because it's more of a family-oriented event, and I think that would appeal to the community. Albert had recruited a Guzheng musician as well as DJ Yuka Yu, who I know is might be familiar to you guys. I saw that she also did the holiday event in downtown Tiburon. I have a hula group from San Rafael who's interested. I did find an origami artist from San Francisco. She is with Paper Tree, and they do a lot of community events. So she was very familiar with, you know, how to do it. And that was very helpful. And I specifically asked her about making paper dragon boats, because Albert again had talked about the Dragon Boat Festival, which is usually celebrated in June. And so we will talk about that. And I did find out that the guy from the martial arts, he had actually participated in the one at Lake Merritt with his team. So I thought he could also talk about that, which would be a good tie-in. The immigration station was very excited actually to participate, and they were very graceful in actually volunteering a letter of support, which I think was also attached to the proposal. And I also had just, I think it was last week, they showed Carved in Silence at the library. which is the story of Angel Island and the detention center, made by Felicia Lowe, and she was actually in attendance. She had just moved to Mill Valley. And so I actually reached out to her for emceeing the event, and she was actually quite excited and interested in doing that. So I thought that was also a good tie-in with the immigration station and all of that. We are planning to also offer food, free food, which I know is always a good draw for community events. And we're thinking about having some Chinese dim sum, basically, so because it's in the afternoon, so it'd basically be, little dumplings that people would try. And I actually did talk with the restaurant today just to confirm that they could actually do a quantity that we're talking about to have for about 200 people. We're talking about several hundreds of these items, and they assured me that they would be able to do that with, enough notice. So I think that was okay. Like I said, I did talk with Deanne from the chamber, and she was very helpful in telling me a lot of stuff about, how this might all work with the council and the library and the chamber and, all these different bodies coming together to make an event like this work. And as I mentioned, I also talked with or emailed Crystal, and she was also very helpful. And she said she had over 100 chairs that she could give us, so that will save us on our rental. Mill Valley Refuse, I guess. I would hesitate to personally have to contact them, but I was hoping that the council would be, willing to work with us to offer and take care of the garbage and all like that. I guess it was Deanne that told us maybe we might expect an attendance of about 200. Again, because an event like this, I had no clue, but she offered 200, so I'm going to go with that. Albert, I think, did a good job of outlining his objectives and outcomes. Do I need to go through? Do I need to get? I don't think. Okay. And I did go ahead and put through a timeline. I think even though I know the council put out a request for proposals back in December, and we're a little bit late, but I think we still have plenty of time to pull this event together. All the people on the program I've already spoken with, they're available for the dates that I proposed. They're very excited to do it. So I think really there would be no problem with pulling this together in the time that we have. And I did also outline a budget. The program, I guess I would say the part of the program, this budget that I'm very confident about has to do with all the performers, because I've already asked them about how much money they would expect, and they are all in agreement with that. Some of the other things like flyers and, some of those things I haven't really quite nailed down, but I think the amount that I put down for those things will probably be adequate. So are there any questions? Thoughts, comments?
First, let's take questions. Do we have any questions from the task force or the staff? No, our attorney. He wants to know what kind of dim sum.
Wonderful.
Okay, I'll give a comment. It sounds absolutely fabulous. I can't thank you enough for your time and your energy and creating such a thoughtful proposal. It is just wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment. Thank you for putting this together. It's incredibly well organized, and I can understand what the costs are and what's going to be included. It's a very thorough proposal. And I think a great cause to have an event for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So thank you for putting this together.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very welcome.
I have a question. I don't know if it's for you or actually probably the town manager or town council, just to confirm that we do not need to procure insurance for this particular event.
That's correct. Basically, if I assume you folks will make a recommendation this evening. The council will hear this at the next opportunity that we can put it on the agenda. And if council approves and approves the funding, it's considered a town sponsored event, and the town's insurance would cover the.
Thank you. That was the concern.
Just one quick comment. I think it's great as well. One question I had is if you plan on inviting a couple vendors that sell the food or drink, or is it all complimentary?
We were planning for it to be complimentary. It seems like it's a pretty generous budget, and I thought with that we probably could include food.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific proposal. It'll mean a lot to the people in Marin, and I think it's awesome. Just I guess we got some press about one of our meetings, and that's how you found out about this. And I think, one of the things that we're looking to do is for Tiburon to sort of be a beacon of leadership for these cultural awareness events. And it's great for you to collaborate with Albert in putting this together. So I look forward to it. Your proposals, I gotta admit, I've done a co-organized or organized few of these. Yours is detailed. I'm going to borrow from it for my next ones. But and then
Thank
in the background, happy to advise on some of the smaller matters you might have questions about, because I have a list of all the vendors for where we need to put stuff and call Mill Valley Refuse, and happy to help out. So
Yes, no, there are definitely some, like I said, I'm very familiar with putting together events in terms of getting people to come and perform. But in Oakmont, I work with an infrastructure. They provide the tables, the chairs, the garbage. I don't have to worry about all that. And so here it's a little bit different in terms of figuring out what I need to do, what the town is willing to do, and who do I call about different things? Where do I get my flyers printed? Stuff like that. Yeah, definitely.
Have anyone else? Okay, do we have any public comment?
Seeing none.
Okay, great. So we could have a motion about this event.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the town council that this event gets approved as one of the 4 main events covered under the strategic plan for the budget amount of $8,000.
Okay, great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, why don't we have a roll call vote?
Starting with the council, Councilmember Ryan is absent, Councilmember Nick Farr,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellner is absent, Vice Mayor Chair Thier.
Here, yes.
Yeah. Mayor Fredericks is absent, and the at-large member is Karen Carrera,
Yes.
Ruben Colorado,
yes,
Nushin Latour,
Yes.
Tina Shaw Pikeday.
Yes.
Thank you.
If there's any other events that people would like to discuss, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other events that anyone would like to discuss tonight? Okay, then moving on to discussion items. We have already voted the strategic plan out of this committee. It was just put on the agenda in case there are any discussion items tonight. I'm not seeing any. Okay, go ahead, Tina, and I will take public comment after Ben, or should I just take it now?
It's your choice.
I'll take it now. Is there any public comment?
Seeing none.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Tina.
I'd just like to comment on last discussion of the strategic plan. There was some question as to breaking some of the parts into different components. And I think that there's so much strong support from the community and the correspondence provided to the town council for the agenda meeting tonight, that if there is any uncertainty about any component of the strategic plan and its budget in total, with respect to not only events, but also in addition to that training and the RIPA data assessment, would like to maybe have that for discussion.
Okay, we could certainly discuss that if any, yeah. Is there any more discussion?
Can you remind us what the concerns were on the RIPA data, for example? Or I know there was a concern about the introduction, right? That was raised, but then we decided to leave it as is. I mean, What other concerns were raised?
I'll step in. I think that, I think what Tina was trying to say that, because there's so much community support that, she's hoping that the strategic plan passes without any amendments.
Okay. got it.
So I think that was kind of the intent of the comment as I heard it.
You said it much better than I did.
I don't think I did, but you know, I think that this has been, how long has this been in the makings?
I think almost a year.
A year, yeah, this is a year's worth of work. So yeah, I just put this on in case anybody wanted to discuss anything. So it's,
It's actually looking.
but I'm not seeing a lot of discussion, so, anybody else? Okay.
Maybe this is something I can just learn on my own, but do task force typically have their own annual budget, or is it always through line item of town council?
I'm gonna let the town manager take that one.
I'm not sure with the difference. So the budget's made up of hundreds of line items and just, in our current year budget, which is fiscal year 24, ending on June 30th, there is a specific line item that says Diversity Inclusion Task Force. And for this fiscal year, that was funded at the amount of $20,000. I think, the question may be, what this body has routinely done is make recommendations to council for expenditures of that line item, which have typically been related to events. And that's not dissimilar from how the Heritage and Arts Commission, I'm trying to, the best example probably is the Heritage and Arts Commission that also has a line item. And they come to council sort of on a project by project basis, for, approving expenditures from that. So if that,
Right.
hopefully that helps.
Right, so what that means is we're not just given a pot of money and we do whatever we want with it. We have an idea of a budget and then we make recommendations to town council to release those funds to, the events that we've had, and other things. Is that right?
Yeah, that's how it's been working up until now. And I, on a related note, and I'll say this at town council at the next meeting, but I want to make sure folks in the room aren't confused. One of the items on the town council this evening is approving budget expenditures for a number of events. And I just want to point out that one of those events actually occurs in November, which is the next fiscal year. So that's fiscal year 25. So you'll see in the staff report for council that the way I've broken it up is for council to vote to authorize expenditures for the two events that are going to occur in this fiscal year, which is the Juneteenth celebration and the Nowruz celebration. Actually approve those expenditures now for this fiscal year. Because there is no budget for the next fiscal year, I've framed it as direct staff to include in the fiscal year 25 proposed budget funding for the Diwali celebration that's to occur in November. So I just want to make sure you understand and aren't confused of why I had to separate those two out, because the council can't approve expenditures in a fiscal year that hasn't happened yet, nor without a budget. So.
Greg, how does that relate to the total of 32,000 that we're requesting for this fiscal year for 4 events?
Right. So it is, that's a great question. I suppose when we're putting the budget together, we will remind council that that was the request from the task force for a total of $32,000. I would have, it's a little, again, we're talking about crossing fiscal years and it doesn't matter to a lot of people except me, but the action item this evening at council, it's a little fuzzy because, the council can't necessarily approve a budget expenditure for the current future fiscal year. It's really indicating their approval of the event and indicating that they'll fund it in the next year out of that 32,000. Does that make sense? This is a little unusual for us too, so we're not quite sure how to proceed, but
Do we have any more questions?
And I know Tiburon hasn't operated that way just because there's been these subcommittees, but there are plenty of communities that do have their own like budget that's determined by their task force. And I think what we're asking, and I'm going to defer to the leader here, who led the led the subcommittee, just your thoughts on, you know, 'cause I think that's the question is this something where essentially the task force is going to be in charge of this budget to signify a commitment for the longevity of Tiburon here in terms of funding? I think that's just my small question.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of confusion because the strategic plan is also on the agenda for approval, including a budget that's more comprehensive than just the events.
Right, but you know, I can't speak for council, but that may be, you know, viewed as a recommendation to include that, the funding in the budget, which, you know, the council won't be considering the next fiscal year's budget until June. That's, you know, the cycle is we develop the budget in April and May, basically, and then the council adopts the budget in June after discussing, you know, the various recommendations. Does that make sense? Hopefully I'm answering your
Right, but
question.
if the council approves the agenda item with the strategic plan, those amounts are kind of earmarked in the budget, not approved to be released. But that would be part of the budget.
I think that's a discussion council really needs to have. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's not, I don't think it's my place to say what it is or.
Okay, okay. I mean,
yeah.
that's fine. It was a question that came into my mind.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think, are there any more questions?
I have the same question.
Okay, I mean, we can ask our attorney for an answer. We can ask for more discussion on it. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I would love to get council's advice on how do we reconcile the two agenda items that seem to be a little bit conflicting with each other.
I mean, it's, I don't have anything to add more than the town managers are explained.
Yeah.
It is up to the council tonight as, you know, to reconcile the budget versus the town budget that happens in June and what that means.
What do you mean conflicting? So I'm a little confused about what you mean by conflicting, because the town council has its own set of agenda items and its own budget, which is separate from what the DITF has. So the DITF doesn't have things that are conflicting with town council in my mind.
No, but again, and I'm not trying to speak for council. The strategic plan has been discussed numerous times, and several meetings ago, prior to the adoption of the strategic plan as a whole, I believe, and I don't have the, you know, the information in front of me, I believe the task force voted to recommend that the council include in next year's budget certain items. And that passed. And my intention is to, as we're developing the budget, remind council that that was the recommendation from the task force as they're developing the budget for next year. And they choose at that time whether to include those items or not. That's normally how the budget process works.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't see any conflict. I think that, you know, were the council to approve both agenda items, they are just both approved. I think possibly the events were set out separately because there's event applications and there's insurance and there's sometimes permits. I don't know why the agenda was prepared in the manner it was, but I don't see that if the town council approved, when the town council approves the strategic plan, then that money would be basically put into a little bucket. And we did discuss this at the last meeting. And I do believe that that is also what we were advised. So I'm going to stick to that. Now, does that mean the money has to be spent? No. That means that it's in a bucket that says training. You know, our town manager may have already scheduled some training that's free. He might have scheduled something else. We don't know. But the money is there to be used. That's how I would look at it. So I don't think it's mutually exclusive or had to be listed as a budget item. Do we have any more discussion on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's the way a lot of us perceive this is, signal the community that we are committing to diversity inclusion in the budget, signifies the importance to Tiburon in the background, just like my own practice, that accounts can figure out which buckets they go into. But overall, I don't think anyone's looking to exceed the budget. Just whatever's unused will go back unused to the community. But again, it does signify, I think, the hard work of Tina and Karen and Nushin and Annette, and to the good work they've done. And I don't think nothing more.
Okay, great. So anyone else, any comments? Any new business? Even though it's not on the agenda, anybody? All right. Sorry,
I
Ben.
can report that I'm the Citizens Advisory Panel member from this DITF. And
We should have that on every agenda, actually.
yeah,
A report, okay.
yeah, and we're very close to choosing a trainer that Chief Jean is really happy. In fact, she recommended them. And she really likes them, and we had a demonstration of what the anti-bias training would be like, and so that's what we've been working on recently. And it looks pretty good, so we'll see. I just want to know whether they can come in and maybe do at least one live training, because it's an online training, which I'm not crazy about, but it's pretty good, and they help the SFPD and the LAPD. So they're used to working with police departments, so they're good that way. But I would like them to come in and do a live training for the police officers at least once a year. So I'm trying, that's what I recommended to Chief Jean, that she find out whether this training, these consultants can do a live training as well. So I'll let you guys know what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that question. The answer is yes. The company in question offers, they're primarily online, but they offer in-person trainings if we choose to go that route. So.
Right. No, they answered me back too. I emailed them directly and they said that they could. But my concern is that Chief Jean said something about like, well, when would we do that? Because of people, the police officers are not there they're there at different times. But I thought she was going to be here. I thought there was like lineup every morning, and that could have been done at that time. But anyway, I'll talk to her about it. But I'm just very wary of only online trainings, because sometimes you just don't get enough out of it, so that's my concern, but she knows that's my concern.
Okay, well, thank you for that report. Are there any other comments? I want to be cognizant of the time, so we give our staff a
Yeah,
break.
just one.
Sure.
Yeah, I would love. I know it still looks like no one's online, and we just have one person here. I think this task force is incredibly important for the town, but I would like to see a little more engagement from the people in our town. I think that kind of some of that shows the importance is that people are willing to give their time to show up and support this effort that a lot of people are putting in. Hopefully people show up either online or in person tonight to the town council meeting to show support for this strategic plan as well.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And I think we usually do have more people. This is a special meeting and people may not know. I'm sure they'll all show up on Valentine's Day, Isaac. But I want to thank everyone. This was a great meeting. I'm sorry we've never gone over. We did. Oh, you're right. This is exactly the right time. Okay, thank you. I was getting nervous, but thank you, everyone. And I'm adjourning the meeting.